All right, everyone, we need to talk about what just happened with the amazing digital circus. So, Gooseworks went on Blue Sky to call out all those fake screenshots people keep making, and then she drops this image of Jax that has completely blown my mind. I'm not even kidding when I say this single screenshot just flipped everything we thought we knew about episode 7. Let's break down what we're seeing, because this image is loaded with implications. Jax is sitting in what looks like a dark room, and the expression on his face, it's pure devastation. Not the kind of controlled breakdown we saw in episode 6. This is someone whose entire foundation just crumbled beneath them. Now, here's what's really interesting about the location. Everyone's assuming this is Jax's room, since we know we're getting character room reveals, but I have a different theory. What if he's actually in Ribbit's old room? We know Jax has those keys to everyone's rooms, right? So picture this. After his confrontation with Pomni, maybe he went somewhere he could process everything that's been buried. Here's where I'm going to throw out a theory that might sound crazy, but hear me out. What if everything we think we know about Ribbit is backwards? Everyone assumes Ribbit was this tragic character who got depressed and abstracted, but what if Ribbit was actually the toxic one? Stay with me here. What if Jax's entire personality, all that cruelty and manipulation, he learned it from Ribbit? Maybe Ribbit was dealing with his own trauma and started using these same defense mechanisms. So when Jax said Ribbit became insufferable, maybe he wasn't talking about sadness. Maybe Ribbit became genuinely awful to be around because that was his way of protecting himself. This is where it gets really messed up. If Jax learned this behavior from Ribbit, then sitting in that room would force him to confront something horrible. He became exactly like the person who hurt him. And after what just happened with Pomni, he's probably realizing he's doing to her what Ribbit did to him. That's a level of self-awareness that could absolutely destroy someone. Imagine understanding that you've been perpetuating the same cycle of pain that ruined your own life. No wonder he looks completely shattered. This actually explains why Gooseworks mentioned multiple rewrites for episode 7. Writing about trauma cycles is incredibly delicate. You have to show how victims can become perpetrators without excusing the harmful behavior. That's a massive storytelling challenge. And when Michael Kovacs warned that this episode would tear the fan base apart, this has to be what he meant. Because some fans have completely demonized Jax, while others defend everything he does. This kind of complex trauma story is going to force everyone to sit with some uncomfortable truths. I'm starting to think episode 7 might be entirely flashback focused, like maybe we see how Jax used to be, possibly even the helpful, caring type, before Ribbit's breakdown changed everything. That would be absolutely brutal to watch, because we'd see the exact moment Jax learned that being vulnerable gets you hurt. And if that's true, then the reason they split this into 2 episodes makes perfect sense. You can't rush through that kind of character development and psychological revelation. Now, the big question everyone's asking, is Jax going to abstract? Because if he's connecting the dots between Ribbit's path and his own current state, he might realize he's heading toward the same end. That kind of revelation could definitely push someone over the edge. But here's what gives me hope. Pomni was the only one who noticed Jax missing during the award ceremony. She actually pays attention to him, even when everyone else writes him off. Maybe she'll be the one to notice something's wrong and get help. Because let's be real, Jax would never accept direct help from her right now. But maybe through Kinger or someone else? Actually, let me dive deeper into the Kinger angle, because I think there's something huge here that nobody's talking about. We know from episode 3 that Kinger had his own traumatic past with Queenie, and he's been dealing with memory issues ever since. But what if Kinger actually remembers more about the early days than he lets on? Think about it. Kinger's been there the longest after Kane. He would have witnessed Ribbit's entire arc from beginning to end. Maybe he even tried to help both Ribbit and Jax back then, but couldn't prevent what happened. That guilt could be part of why his mind fractured the way it did. So, if Jax is having this breakdown in episode 7, Kinger might be the only one who truly understands the full picture. He's seen this exact pattern play out before with Ribbit, and now he's watching it happen again with Jax. That's the kind of tragic irony that would absolutely fit with this show's themes. But here's where things get really interesting from a world-building perspective. What if the digital circus itself is somehow feeding off these trauma cycles? We know Kane creates adventures based on the character's psychological states, But what if there's something more sinister happening? Maybe the reason people abstract isn't just from despair. Maybe it's from breaking these specific patterns of behavior that the circus somehow needs to maintain. Like, what if Ribbit was actually close to finding a healthier way to cope? And that's what triggered his abstraction. The system couldn't handle someone healing and breaking free from the cycle. If that's true, then Jax's current crisis isn't just personal. It's him potentially discovering the same truth that Ribbit did. And that would explain why this revelation is happening now, right as the show is building toward what feels like a major turning point for all the characters. Okay, this might sound like a stretch, but stay with me because I think there's a brilliant meta-commentary happening here. The way Jax treats others, especially online through his pranks and cruelty, mirrors a lot of toxic internet behavior. People who've been hurt often turn around and hurt others through screens and anonymity. But what's fascinating is that Gooseworks is exploring this through a character who's literally trapped in a digital space. So when Jax realizes he's become like Ribbit, it's not just personal growth. It's commentary on how digital environments can amplify and perpetuate harmful behaviors. This adds another layer to why the fan base might be torn apart by this episode, because some viewers are going to see themselves reflected in Jax's journey, and that's going to be uncomfortable as hell. The show isn't just asking whether Jax can change, it's asking whether any of us can break free from learned patterns of online toxicity. And if episode 7 really does show Jax confronting this cycle, then episode 8 might be about whether genuine connection and empathy can exist in digital spaces. That's some heavy philosophical territory for a show about colorful circus characters, but that's exactly what makes it so brilliant. What's really fascinating is how this fits into the show's themes about identity and human connection. If my theory's right, then Jax's story becomes this exploration of how trauma gets passed down and whether people can break free from learned patterns of behavior. That's heavy stuff for any show, but especially one that started as this colorful, seemingly lighthearted series. The fact that we're getting this kind of psychological depth shows just how ambitious this project really is. The timing works out too, because we're getting more reveals at Comic-Con in a few weeks. But honestly, this one image has already changed my entire perspective on where the story's going. Episode 7 isn't just going to be another adventure, it's going to be a deep dive into what makes Jax who he is and whether he can change. So what do you think? Are we about to see Jax's complete origin story? Or am I reading too much into one screenshot? Could Ribbit actually turn out to be the toxic influence everyone's been overlooking? Drop your theories in the comments because I'm genuinely curious what everyone else is picking up from this image. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.